Welcome to Against All Oddities, the podcast about three brothers coming to terms with the oddly true and the truthfully odd. On today's special episode, the Against All Oddities brothers talk about the second U.A.P. congressional hearing with podcaster and author extraordinaire Erik Slader. Join us as we collectively geek out about everything U.A.P. This includes the recent congressional hearings, but also non-biological intelligence, the Immaculate Constellation program, drone swarms, and our adventures with remote viewing. Long live the Tridactyls! This is Against All Oddities!
Hey, welcome to Against All Oddities. I am excited to talk about our usual strange, spooky, paranormal and stuff, but today it's UAP's 3.0 because there was a hearing today and we have a special guest. Erik Slader's with us. Chris, why don't you tell us about Erik?
Yeah, well, Erik Slader, you know him from probably every other podcast that you can find on the internet, whether that's Epic Fails of History, Nerdogram, Podcasters Assemble, and Super Switch Club. Also author of several books, but most notably, I guess, pertinent to this conversation, the science fiction novella 2299. Yeah, and you have a series of children's books too, yeah? Or am I getting
I co-wrote a middle grade book series a few years back called Epic Fails, all about historical failures that led to success, all about not giving up and perseverance. We covered the Wright brothers, the early days of NASA, all the presidents, things like that. So a lot of good stuff there.
Still working on a president article, right? With the
so for my personal blog, I've been doing a multi-part series covering all the pros and cons of every single president, which is kind of an undertaking. It's been several years in the works.
There's a few of them.
And I'm up to part 12 right now. Finally getting into the modern presidents, which it gets real complicated, especially.
Yeah, I was going to say, it's probably a little easier to do.
Yeah, right now.
I'm trying to keep it like as non-biased as possible, but it's tough when you get to like Reagan and stuff. It's like, look, I mean, some of the stuff he did, man, it's like we're reaping the
yeah, my wife's a historian and can have a lot to say about how Reagan kind of fucked up some environmental stuff, but we won't go there. Right now.
No, it's a whole other conversation.
Yeah, exactly. But it is pertinent because we are talking about the government today, and we're talking about
the
U.S. And so I think we might just kind of get into just talking about it. So all four of us, I forgot to include myself in that conversation, watch the second UAP hearing, congressional hearing that was today. So this will probably come out a couple days from now. November 13th. Hopefully still fresh in your mind, listeners.
Yeah, broad question. We'll let Erik start. How'd you feel about the hearing?
Oh man.
Well, no, how about a broader question? What is a UAP again? Just to
So the term is unidentified anomalous phenomenon, not aerial phenomenon, anomalous phenomenon. And the reason is because it refers to both things in the air and under the sea. So,
and also I do totally plan on bringing back a joke which I still laugh at or chuckle at from our last UAP episode. With anytime someone says the word phenomena, I do a juxtapose but na song from the Muppets, because that's fucking funny as hell.
Yeah,
so just know if you say phenomena out loud, that's going to happen underneath you for the next hour.
Before we get too far into it, I just wanted to say I'm honored to be on this show. I'm actually a big fan of you guys. I've been like slowly going through the backlog and just like getting
sketchy back there.
Well, totally. But every podcast has its growing pains, right? And,
exactly.
I'm definitely digging it, guys. You guys do a good job. So it's such a great great to be
having you here. And thanks for the Discord. You have the insurance,
paranormal insurance card. So never leave the house without it. That was an Astral Roadside Assistance really came in handy.
I'm glad you didn't need it, right?
Exactly.
Because you just drove from Florida to California and back, which
it
was
was
like
rough,
the most
man.
liminal experience I've heard of. But you're good? You're recovered?
I'm so sore. I'm so exhausted, but I was glad to get back in time to not only watch the hearing, but to discuss it with you guys.
Oh
so,
yeah, great.
You know,
I was gonna say, if any of y'all listen to the Mysterious Universe thing, they have a really good conversation about roadside astral projections. That just
oh,
is real.
so it is a
real
thing.
Yeah, I didn't. I know we thought it was funny, but then there was like,
you mean the wizards that made that card thought it was
Yeah, we
funny
thought it
that
was
we're
funny
not
that they did
legally
that.
tied to very hard.
But anyway,
Because we
I
don't
didn't
know
mean
their
to
real identities.
sideline or derail this whole conversation. Tim, you started asking a question about like
Sorry.
what Eric thought of the congressional hearing, but maybe we back it up a little bit and just
Well,
explain
Griffin
what
was
that
still
is.
introducing himself, Chris.
Yeah. What was that?
Yeah, Eric was just introducing himself and you cut him off.
Oh yeah, that's my MO. I will cut all everyone off. So
Well, yeah,
that's
we
all
do
good.
it to each other so
Totally.
much that we're used to it. So you don't have to be polite; just get louder.
I should give you the mute control to mute all of us as we try to talk over you.
that's
Yeah.
true. Well, take it away from there, but let's also think about I feel like in a way you're my placeholder, Eric, because out of the Against All Oddities crew, I know the least about the UAPs. Like my area of expertise is elsewhere, and I kind of lean on Tim and Nate for I guess expertise in that. So if I start like not talking, you're my mouthpiece. You're the foil today.
No, you're
not
good,
me.
man.
So anyway, thanks for being here. And
Yeah, no, totally. I'm glad to be here. It's kind of become my wheelhouse over the last few years, which is weird because if you knew me prior to 2020, I was a hardline skeptic on like a lot of things like ghosts, yeah, bullshit, blah blah blah, like, but I've really come like full circle since then. And part of it was the UAP topic, after the 2017 New York Times article, I kind of was like, that's interesting. And then the 60 Minutes episode on the Tic Tac incident, and that's when I really started kind of paying attention, kind of
Tic
like
Tac's big deal, yeah.
right, like leaning forward because like there's so much credible information, and a lot of it, of course, is classified, but like something clearly happened there, and obviously we have the footage and stuff, but it'd be awesome if we got like the the telemetry data and stuff so we could actually study this. It's just so interesting how the past few years it really does feel like there's a slow roll disclosure going on. And like, of course, last year's hearing 2023 with David Grush and the two Navy pilots, that was something else. Like I was on the edge of my seat during that hearing. It's freaking C-SPAN. It should be boring as hell, but I was like so invested. And it was just weird to me that like the media wasn't taking it as seriously. Like it was kind of like a joke at the end of a segment or whatever.
Yeah, it was like a shock headline.
Yeah.
Nothing's real anymore, so what difference does it make? That was, I think, the final episode of the X-Files. It's like there are no X-Files. It's pointless.
Yeah.
There's no more truth.
Right. So
it is wild to even think about, like, I mean, today, but also that first time, I'm thinking more specifically the first congressional hearing of just like being in Congress and them dropping bombs on like these wild like terms, like just to have congressional like members say words like aerial phenomena or like non-biological or non-human intelligence. You're like, oh my god, like
it's so interesting, like, and the fact that it's under oath and it's on the record, like this is historical stuff, and it's kind of weird how a lot of people are just kind of dismissing it. Like this is a pretty big deal, guys. Like it's no one else. I don't know. It's just weird to me that like the way people like just, I don't know if it's like a cognitive dissonance thing or what, but it does.
So if you had to like pick your like biggest kind of thing that you took away from the first congressional hearing,
sure.
Like this could be for anyone, but mostly focusing on you, Eric. Like what would you like? What did you take away from that was like that represented to you?
Oh man, I just had this moment while watching it live, like as it was happening. I was like, "Is this real? Am I dreaming? There's no way." Like, because like I don't know if people understand the gravity of some of the things that were said during that. Like, he's not going to commit perjury, like he whether or not this is real, like he definitely believes it's real, and you can kind of tell from his body language. I'm talking about David Grush specifically.
Yeah, I figured. Yeah.
But then it was reinforced by the testimony, the firsthand testimony from the two pilots who had seen stuff up close and personal, like, so Yeah, it just really like it went from being like, this is interesting, I wonder if there's more here, to like, oh shit, this is probably real.
Yeah.
It kind of
Yeah.
it was that kind of moment for me, you know, it kind of, you know.
Yeah. I mean,
And
I was already a
yeah.
believer, but what Nate kind of can maybe talk about this, but when I was talking to both these guys about the first congressional hearing, the thing that Nate kind of brought up that like made it sink home to me, because I was like, A, I kind of believed in it anyway, and then B, I was like, no one's gonna take this seriously. Like it just seems like it will never be taken seriously. But Nate was like, no, it's about the finances. Like this is the first time like it's actually about congressional oversight of
Yes.
like black ops spending, you know, like, and that like there's some real like tectonic shifts underneath there when you're thinking about like, oh well, yeah, the Congress is responsible for oversight of these expenses that no one has clearance to even
Purview.
discuss.
Yeah.
And there was some
it's
real
kind of wild,
there.
like just that, like the alien stuff is crazy enough, right? But it's actually the other stuff that's like way more wild to me in a way, you know, like the fact that this stuff is going on without any congressional oversight. And like that's what was acknowledged today, and that kind of blows my mind. Like it wasn't so shocking, it wasn't as like eye-opening as that first hearing, but in a way it was a little bit more profound, because like some substantive, yeah, how do I say that, substantive stuff was said, you know. I mean, the fact that this Immaculate Constellation program, there's been rumors going around for a while, like big. Yeah, that's huge. That was confirmed today pretty much, right?
I downloaded,
from my
did you get
understanding,
the documents off? They were posted on Reddit. I was downloading them all. I can share them as well, that or what was presented there as the paper where it highlights Immaculate Constellation, right?
I think that's
so
it's a big part of why I think people are starting to not just see it as something to brush off as a shock headline or as science fiction that, you know, just a nut got in front of Congress to talk about this stuff, is alien stuff aside, it's, even if it's not disclosure, it was a confession that something we don't know is happening on a big enough scale that there's a system in place to either stop it or collect it or do whatever. So, and then it's NHI makes it crazy, but it's like, it's there, it's real. Accept as much of it as you can.
Expand on Immaculate Constellation?
Yeah, maybe
probably
explain
be a
what
better
that is
one
in case someone listening didn't actually
explain it. And I wrote down, I have like a bunch of the highlights of that I'd like to get your opinion on too. But if that was the biggest part of it, like what's your explain that a little bit, I guess, the Immaculate Constellation part.
So I actually am not too familiar with that portion of it yet. I've just picked up on certain things, and I haven't had time to look through the documents that released.
Yeah, did any of you guys, Tim, Nate, do you know? Because I was also
the Immaculate Constellation.
Yeah, they were talking
and that's the code name of the program that retrieves the crash,
the one that
the crash retrieval program.
Yeah, the one that Elizondo kept saying, like, I can't talk about it, but it's real, but I can't talk about it. Yeah, the code name for that program was the Immaculate Constellation.
Okay, cool.
Because I too was like, no, I'm sure I know what this is, but let me just Google it to make sure I know what this is.
Yeah.
I had never heard of it really before today, and then when it came out, I was like, oh shit, that's what they were.
Well, there was an article. There was an article, I think it was by was it Schellenberger? Yeah, he was one of the journalists. He was one of the witnesses. But he, I think, is the one that broke that story a few weeks back. And I remember like there was like, he supposedly got some threats over it, over releasing the information. And so he was like, you know, afraid for his life and stuff. And I think that's one of the reasons he wanted to be on the record.
No, also, yeah, like that's another thing Nate brought up with the first hearing with maybe Gorsh, but was like
Grush,
Grush, yeah, sorry, was that once you go in front of Congress, they kind of can't kill you. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like it becomes a Fox Mulder situation
protection.
where you know, like they can't kill Fox Mulder because he would create, you know, like he's too well
and he'd be a martyr at that point, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So,
well, a couple of them have what was it, like the kill plans or whatever. where if they die.
Wait, was
like,
that in the documents?
No.
Dead man
But
switch.
the
Dead man
whistleblowers,
switch.
the
Yeah.
dead man's switch. Yeah. Like
Dead Man Switch. Yeah, supposedly George Knapp and Jeremy Corbell have them.
Yeah.
Which I mean, it's they make their money off of getting like exciting listeners more excited,
Totally.
but like it's still what do they have though? Like why?
Well, supposedly like some legit like people come to them and they can't always release everything. But supposedly specifically those two guys have a lot of stuff that they haven't been able to release yet.
So wait, is it Dead Man
like
Switch?
The
if
jellyfish
murdered,
video was one of
gets
those.
released.
Yeah, that's the idea.
That's the idea. Okay,
because there's like sort of, from what I understand, again, I'm relatively new to the topic, even though I like did a deep dive these last couple of years into like the history of it. But from what I understand, there's like kind of a history of like people coming forward and then dying under mysterious circumstances.
Yeah.
Like suicide by 2 bullets to the back of the head kind of stuff. You
Yeah,
know, like
Boeing
really
employee,
sketchy.
Like
And the Boeing stuff recently was kind of in that same vein. So it's like, what's going on here, guys? You know?
Well, I mean, I don't want to jump the line of shit that
Right.
went down today, but I thought it was crazy when they were kind of throwing various like private companies under the bus.
Right.
Oh, they
named
cool.
Lockheed Martin?
Yeah.
And of course, what was the other one with the B?
Boeing. No,
it wasn't
sorry.
Boeing.
Lockheed Martin and
shoot.
It doesn't matter, but regardless,
Yeah.
So for listeners who didn't listen to it, there was this kind of like back and forth where it was more or less accidentally revealed that Lockheed had possession of U.A.P. materials.
But that's been speculation for years.
I know, that's what's crazy. That's like been a rumor forever. Like Spielberg put it in Close Encounters even.
Yeah, but then they were like just talking about
got confirmation of it in Congress under oath. Like, that's fucking crazy.
There's some Lockheed executive where somebody just took a picture of his office and there's a framed picture of a fucking UFO in the background.
Oh,
like
wow.
in a bunker. Like that circulates
Released,
through Reddit every couple of months.
Reddit thing that circles up every once in a while.
Yeah, if you follow the U.A.P. Reddit stuff or the UFOs,
there's some crazy stuff in there.
The Lockheed one pops up like I'd say every 3-4 months, and it's apparently a thing. Like, but they're saying he has access to the prototypes of all the stuff they're working on. So of course it gets like sort of buried in the comments.
You know what? Before we move on from the Immaculate Constellation, and I don't know if you guys have heard this, but when I was first reading about it a couple weeks ago, it was more of, I thought, because it was getting tied in with global spy satellite network and then the AI that runs it. So the U.S. actually has every square mile of the planet under observation, and it's got, I forgot the Overwatch, or what's the name? I was getting it confused with Immaculate Conception until today, honestly, but I was like thinking that was what they're referring to, and that's where it was going to come out, because that program, the AI program, could retrieve images all over the world and see exactly what's happening at all times. I can't remember the name of it now because I kept mixing it up. But do you know anything about that? Have you heard? You know,
I've heard. Well, I've heard things in passing, I guess.
Yeah.
But yeah, I haven't looked too deeply into it. And I think I saw something that was trying to tie that spy satellite thing to Immaculate Constellation, but again, I haven't looked at the documents myself, so I don't know. Maybe I'm mistaken.
I can't. You know, that's something I need to. That's a note I have to follow up a little deeper on, because it goes back to, like, you know, the weather balloon shoot down.
Right. Yeah.
Alaska.
February 2023. Right.
Right. And so you see where the Chinese balloon, they had 4K, 8K pictures up close, every single thing. And then not so on the other things they shot down immediately after. And they're like, the seas were too stormy to pick up. And you just see this fleet of helicopters over like a flat sea going out in Alaska. It's like real stormy.
Well, and did you see the documents released from the Canadian government around that time?
Yeah, it showed the picture.
They talk about they refer to it as a UAP was recovered, not like a balloon was recovered, not a drone was recovered, a UAP was recovered. So
counted around like the Chinese balloon was like the perfect cover for everybody. Like, thanks China for your dumb balloon.
Yeah, but China,
everyone was like,
but see,
why are you letting it float over the country?
It's a weird story, but I feel like it was actually the Chinese balloon that caused us to notice the UAP.
Oh, that's true.
Because we adjusted, or from what I understand, they adjusted their radar sensors and suddenly started picking up all this other stuff. And
NORAD ignores balloons and clutter, right? Like, so they say, we don't care about small stuff. Somebody let off a bunch of balloons. We don't need to track it like a missile. Yeah,
yeah, exactly.
But didn't China come out and say, like, that's not us?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
That's just something China would say. Wouldn't they? 100% wouldn't they say that?
Right.
Yeah.
They should have said it was them if they really wanted to throw us off.
Yeah, exactly.
So as the novice in the room, though, one thing they were talking about, I actually hadn't heard about, but the Langley thing, I didn't know about that. What's going on with 20-foot long?
Oh, that was a weird one.
Eric?
I didn't know they were 20 feet. I just knew there were drone swarms.
I heard something about drone swarming Langley. That's all I heard. But I was like, wait, the drones were 20 feet long? Can someone tell the story?
I heard about this a while back when it happened. And it was just such a weird story. And it was weird. It continues to be weird that the mass media is not even like batting an eye at this stuff. They don't talk about it for some reason. And that alone is pretty strange considering. So there was a drone swarm over this base. And I guess some of them were like 20 feet long. And they were in the air for 17 days.
I was gonna say that's what I didn't know. It was like I pictured like a little cloud like out of Charlie Brown, like going over Langley, and then they kind of like shoot them away. I didn't know it was like 17 fucking days.
So if it was Chinese, we would have shot that down like within the first hour, right? Or Russian, or like any foreign adversary.
Yeah, they would have just like collected the debris.
Did you read Lou's book, right?
Oh, yes.
Yeah, right, Imminent. Which is awesome. And but I like where he talks about, and he talked about it today too at the hearing on November 13th.
I will say, hold on, Nate. We are talking amongst ourselves and forgetting there may be listeners that are not as up to date with what you're talking about. Lou Elizondo, who
was a witness today,
was one of the witnesses in the congressional hearing, wrote a book called Imminent, and he worked for
Arrow or
one of the
Elizondo. He was part of ATIP and OSAP as part of the Pentagon's UAP task force.
UAP task force. But we were talking about his book that he released just a few months ago. Go ahead.
Got it on Audible.
Well, and you guys have read this book. I have not. I have a 1-year-old. I don't
listen to it on Audible. Yeah. And he read it, which was cool, I thought. It was his voice. But anyway, his thing is, he had two big points to why we don't want to engage, or we're not talking about engaging it or shooting it down like we would a Chinese balloon. The first being, we don't want our adversaries like today know that we have weaknesses in our defenses, because we're the most powerful nation, like 10 times more powerful than anybody else. Like we
spend so much money on our military.
Brilliant. It's like we were worried about Russia. It's like whatever. That's like one boat in the fleet is their entire military budget, right? Like we were way advanced. So we don't want anybody to know there's a possibility, like, so an adversary like China be like, oh, maybe we could send like out of space, have some pods drop down and drop down.
Apparently they can't handle 100 drones.
Exactly. So with the drone swarm and stuff, we don't want to talk about it. And then the other part, the scarier part that Lewis talked about is like, well, because he was in military intelligence and counterintelligence, it's like before you invade a country, you send your spies and you prod the defenses and just see what's there. But the second you're known, it's over. You have to invade that second. So as soon as like, oh my God, 50 people are spies, they're checking out our military bases, you have to invade before they lock it down, right? So that part of what he's saying is we don't want to know, or we don't want to like let the public know, and if it gets out there, and then whatever this is, a side evolved species or plasma life or whatever the hell it is, we don't need it to like know that we know, or like are going to secure ourselves to it. So maybe we're not attacking because we know we don't want it to know we can take it down. Like in the like maybe if you go back to like he also talks about swatting flies, or maybe that was from Secret Machines or something, but where it was starting like in the late 40s, early 50s, we started blowing up nuclear bombs in the sky because if you saw something, they drop down. They can't handle it.
We were testing.
Or the EMP
Right.
pulse, whatever.
What was that, Project Starfish or something? The one over Hawaii.
Yeah, I can't
It
remember.
knocked out a bunch of satellites.
Yes.
Like EMP.
Yes.
Yeah.
And it could be, you say, oh, well, that's to knock out satellites, right? Because we're testing, that's, we're trying to get the satellites, like Russian satellites or something. Are we? Or is this been
There's
going
a lot
on
of weird
forever?
Yeah, the Cold War, man.
Yeah.
It's so interesting because like it's pretty recent history, but it is history, and we don't really have the full picture of it still after all this time. Like, we could get into a lot of topics with that, obviously, JFK and all that. There's so many things that are still classified that we should know by now. It's been how long? 60 years?
What is as a historian, what with the Majestic 12 and what was it? Who signed the deal? Signed the deal with the aliens to say you can abduct a few of us. Hey, take as many cow parts as you want to dissect. We don't care. But give us some microwaves. Give us like some microwave technology.
Well, so I definitely believe a lot happened in the 50s, but I'm skeptical about the Majestic 12 documents because there is a lot of intentional weaponized disinformation out there to try to discredit this topic. And that feels like it's a little too clean cut. It's a little too perfect. Like, no, like there's too many questions that come up with that. Like, how are we communicating with these beings? Like, I don't know.
Eisenhower had to get his tooth
I'm open to it,
so
but like,
disappear.
It's sort of like on the edge of where, you know what I mean? It's not one of the things I'm more honed in on the congressional hearings and like the more substantive.
Yeah, I'm not following. I'm not going down that rabbit hole. But I did very quickly. I think I mentioned it on the Discord when we were watching it. But when Louis Elizondo was talking about the non-human biological material
that's huge,
that was collected before his time, I was like, Roswell.
Absolutely, Roswell. I don't want to derail things completely, but can we talk about Roswell for a second?
No, please,
because this is something I have actually looked into quite a bit. And the craziest thing about this story is that if you look at the history of it, the official story keeps changing over time. Like originally, when the event first happened, the Army's press release said it was a flying disc. That was coming from the Army directly. And then the next day, of course, was the cover-up saying, oh, we were mistaken. It was a weather balloon. How do you, anyways, but then the weather balloon was then discredited later on in the 90s. They said, oh no, it was actually a Project Mogul test balloon. They said it was test flight number 4 specifically. Now, more recently, it's been released, the documents on that were released, and it said that test flight number 4 never took off due to weather. So it literally could not have been that. And then there was, a lot of people were saying, well, what about the bodies? There was so much talk about bodies, like all these witnesses at the time were talking about the bodies, and they tried to say that it was crash test dummies. Okay, so that's two separate things you're trying to like.
Chris already added a sound effect right after.
Yeah, I was gonna say I already got it playing right now underneath us.
So like there was this crash where Roswell caused a lot of trouble.
Yeah, man. It's crazy. Like none of this adds up. Just tell us the truth. Even if it's like I'm open to it being a mundane thing or something even horrifying that's terrestrial. But
why? But it doesn't. They messed up their chance for the mundane.
Right.
They tried to make it mundane. Now, even if it was mundane, why did they get it? It's a little funny.
It's like a 3-year-old telling a lie or something, right? Like, oh yeah, it's definitely not an alien outside because the dog put on my Halloween costume and went down the street, and that's what it is.
Wait, you don't have a dog, and it's Easter.
Yeah, like, I was thinking more as like the government was out clubbing till 3 a.m. You're like, who were you with? You're like, nobody. I was at the library. It's 3 a.m. The library wasn't open.
I personally
not adding up government.
Exactly.
New theory about that, Tim. And the older I get and the more I interact with people, and I'm not saying I'm that smart, but I'm realizing that the majority of the population or people in general are dumb. Like they are. We exist. We exist in a sea of Forrest Gumps, and they've not even. I'm not even kidding.
Forrest Gump was an accomplished man, Nate.
But see, Forrest Gump was a good person, so that's actually
it doesn't mean they're bad. Intelligence, and virtue, and everything else are two separate different things.
Totally.
Everybody is kind of dumb. Like, how could this happen? Or just like I could tell you that we landed on the moon without looking at actual satellite, or even you can see it. For every country has a picture of the moon landing when they orbit the moon and stuff. But
there's a paper trail there. There's so many reasons, you know, it would take 400,000 people to fake that. They said 400,000 people at this point would have to be in on the secret and keeping the secret. You can't get 4 people to keep a secret, you know. You struggle. So
and people are dumb, and the proof of it is the fact that on the congressional committee, Lauren Boebert was there.
Oh my god, that was so cringy.
It's like she's so cringe. You're like, that is the government got her in on that just to like devalidate like the
it's okay. No,
she has to have her finger in something.
Gates is the attorney general now.
Yes.
He's up for.
That's depressing.
We don't have to get into that. But you know, one thing is Matt Gaetz is actually pro-disclosure, which is I'm conflicted about.
So is Boebert. I mean,
here's the thing, though. What's amazing about this topic is that it is bipartisan.
It's like the only bipartisan
it's
thing.
the only thing we can agree on. So that alone is pretty phenomenal.
Yeah, you know what's crazy is that the Department of Government Efficiency might try to cut this funding because that's the new job, right? I'm not saying I haven't read that or anything.
Elon Musk, right?
But that's Musk's job is to cut the fat, like the USPS and public libraries and NPR and the public education.
Wants money into space because he is the space guy, right?
So wouldn't he be pro-disclosure?
Pro-Space Force. Because
he wants to cut the funding to these programs, I bet. And then that way he would get the funding for it.
By the way, beep, 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 beep. I think the document...
Wait, does that mean you don't want me? Do you want me to cut this? Is that what you're beeping? No,
beep, 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 beep. No. Newsflash that I just remembered.
I thought Nate was taking the talking stick from Chris. Like that
was trying to, but it can't reach it. But when Lou to talk about the hearing again, that law document or whatever that Lou signed in the skiff, I guarantee that's for Space Force.
Oh, 100%.
I think because
like that one lawyer was like, how many pages was it? Who was in the room with you? What do you mean a sketch? Like, I think
that was like, I think that was doing two things. I mean, fuck that dude probably, but also I think he was
that Moskowitz that was
and I think what he was doing was trying to give it credit, because if you want to catch someone in lie, you ask mundane details like how long was the thing. You're like, well, it was 1.5 pages, but like Lou Elizondo was like, I can like
he did when he was able to.
But in a way, he like lawyer talk, like you overwhelmed them with a bunch of very mundane details.
I loved that.
And it actually was really clever. And I thought it brought a lot of credibility. I mean, I believe Lou, but like it brought a lot of credibility to Lou Elizondo, because he was just answering no hesitation. It's like,
he was on top.
There's no doubt in my mind he was in a skiff signing a 1.5 page, whatever you call it, like Triforce document.
Lou was not the immaculate witness, though. I like him. I believe him. I mean, I got the book. I believe what he's trying to disclose, but he has also now put himself in a pop culture podcast circle and publicity ring where he needs to keep
in a way that Grush
content.
hasn't done that.
Right.
He's better than Grush is at that.
No, he is better, and he's a better public speaker too, and he's entertaining to listen to. But I'd say there is bias there now for profit, because recently he has published photos that were proven to be debunked, but he was sharing them. And then he came out and apologized. He was like, shame on me. This
to his credit,
but I didn't do enough background on it.
That's the thing.
If everyone fucks up now and then, but it's
but also just for the listener,
that's what's important, I think,
who maybe doesn't know who these people are or didn't watch the congressional hearing. It's really important to mention that the 4 witnesses there, these are the most materialistic, straight-laced, military-minded people you can get. So
scientist, a doctor, and an admiral.
Like
come on,
NASA, a rear admiral, a NASA scientist, Lou Elizondo, who's like the most military, like like the way he carries himself. I mean, this dude is not like a hippie.
He's not fucking around.
And a very like respected like journalist, right? And so
a professor.
Yeah, and Professor,
then
so
and
these
Michael
people are
Gold
not like this fringe.
used to work for NASA, so
Yeah,
that's pretty huge.
And so it's important to note, like Louis Elizondo,
Yeah.
like in my mind, and this is kind of what Tim was talking about, like in my mind, because I haven't seen him, I haven't read the book, I don't have time, but I was like, he's kind of the like Carney character, like he's the like showman, right? And then I see him up there, and I was like, oh yeah, just look at this dude. He's just like, he is like a brass, they're like asking direct questions, like I'm a nuts and bolts guy. Like he was so like straight, like
his dad was a Cuban nationalist, by the way, and he trained Lou on rifles and stuff when he was 8 to
he was expecting to go back to overthrow the government.
He was captured at the Bay of Pigs and tortured for 2 years.
Yeah,
but his dad's Cuban and super. It's really cool. Like if you read a story, it's not just for UFOs, but the whole history of him. He's just awesome.
He's fascinating. Yeah.
Well, we're talking about Lou, and I know, Chris, you haven't read the book because you have a 1.5-year-old and your life is hard. The first 25 pages, he drops some shit where you're like, excuse me, are we jumping in with this fast?
I had to slow down a little bit. I was like, wait, is he really talking about? Yeah.
So in South America, it's not just UAPs. They are coming down and attacking the residents and burning them and hitting them with lasers and chasing them, and they're seemingly malicious. And he said there's
Colaris, right?
Yeah, there's all this evidence, and there's even these other people went down there to witness this, and they ended up getting hurt or having to hide. And there's like all this evidence of the damage that these things are doing. So it's
George Knapp's documentary did cover that recently.
Yeah, it's cool.
Which is on Netflix, right? It's like a 6
episode.
Wait, which one?
Definitely
is that
worth checking out. Investigation Alien on Netflix, I think.
It came out like a week ago, a couple days ago.
Yeah, it's pretty recent.
Good
but
timing.
he gets into the Colaris stuff. Like talks to witnesses down there and stuff. It's pretty interesting.
So this is good.
It's
name some of the other like shit
than...
that goes down in the first 20 pages of Lou Elizondo's new book, Imminent. Like, what were some other like true tales?
I was actually really surprised he brought up remote viewing, which I'm a believer of.
Chris, like a lot.
Oh yeah.
But like the fact that like it felt like he was already putting a lot into this, like to add that on top of it, like was kind of bold, I think. But he was like pretty straight faced, about it. Like he was just like point blank, this is a thing that our government does.
Like Chris does. I mean, we have the CIA documents.
I mean, the CIA documents, if you look into it. In fact, you guys actually got me onto that. You guys made me go down that rabbit hole because I was not a believer.
The Stargate, all the Stargate shit.
Last year, sorry, okay, that's the whole thing. My bad.
So Chris, Lou was trained on remote viewing by the government. It wasn't just Stargate. It's still going on.
He went to the Monroe Institute. He went to the Monroe Institute, and he credits that to his saving his men's life in Afghanistan or whatever.
He started to listen to intuition from remote viewing. But Eric,
go back and listen to our Monroe Institute episodes.
And Project Stargate.
But
which
Eric,
is awesome.
Do you feel comfortable talking about remote viewing?
I mean, we can get into it a little bit. I don't want to derail the conversation completely.
No, but that's more on brand for us than it is than UAPs are actually. Quick.
That came up today as well, and another thing where they said, I forgot who said one of the psychological impact was sharing the perspective or the consciousness with the triangle UFOs or whatever. I'm paraphrasing because I can't remember it, but that was kind of interesting. And then the hitchhiker effects. And then I think you go into the hitchhiker effect stuff that everybody talks about, or skinwalkers in the Pentagon, and the Lou book and everything else. It's like, why is it that after there's interaction with these things, there's some kind of a different
psychological
or psychic connection all of a sudden? And did you read the Secret Machines book by what's his name?
It's on my list.
It's okay. It's terrible. I'm sorry.
It's fiction, but it's supposedly metaphor for real stuff, right?
Yeah, which it makes sense, and you watch it, and it goes back. I like the historical part. I think you'll like it. excuse me,
I mean,
like
that's my
World War II.
jam, you know. So
Yeah.
Exactly, like World War II and all that stuff, and paperclip and everything. But it's written by somebody not in the military or has ever been in a secret area, because the main characters are like, the pilot pulled out his iPhone and researched or whatever. It's like, you would not have that deep in the basement of Area 51. I could tell you that.
Yeah, totally. Man.
So I'll Eric on
Yeah.
the remote viewing thing had some, not just some hits, but like
Yes.
it started taking you to some meditative places, didn't it?
Absolutely. You know, we could do a whole episode just on this topic, but just briefly, it was something I was extremely skeptical about, but I was like, you know what, I gotta give it a shot. I'm gonna try it myself, try to approach it scientifically and like, you know, all that. And I got multiple like pretty distinct hits one after another. Like accurate hits. And it was shocking to me. I was like, there's no way, this is not a 50-50 thing. It's not like, was it red or blue? It was like, I described something that was out there that I had no, you know,
you shouldn't have been able to do.
It just didn't make sense that it kept happening. So I was like, it kind of threw me through a little bit of a loop, and I was sort of like trying to figure out the implications of it. And I looked into it a little bit, and it seems like there might be some quantum explanations for it, if that makes sense. You know,
I mean, that's how I read it for sure.
Scientists are trying to understand consciousness, and there's a new, I'm trying to figure out the right terminology, but there's like a new I can't think of the term, but a lot of scientists are starting to consider that maybe consciousness actually exists outside of the physical body, which is kind of crazy, but like it seems that that's where the evidence is leading, right? So yeah, one of the weird things though is, as I was experimenting with this stuff, other weird things started to happen.
High strangeness.
It's one of those things, like, I guess there's like, just once you tap into that stuff, like other shit starts coming your way. And I had a number of very weird experiences in a very short period of time that I'm still like trying to unpack. Like, I feel like I'm going to spend the rest of my life unpacking what happened last year.
Yeah, it's something we talked about on our last Ghost episode, where he's saying that most people believe that you have to have an experience to become a believer, but the idea is once you start believing, you start actually having experiences. It's like reverse of what you like the scientific mind would want to be. It's like, well, give me evidence and I will believe. And it's like, well, actually, if you like allow it, weird shit starts happening. It's not like
it'll just happen to you. You'll have firsthand experience.
Like in like intense stuff. And
so I tell my sister-in-law, who's super afraid of ghosts. Sarah's like petrified of ghosts. Scientist, so's her husband, you know, but they're scared of her old house. She's really scared of ghosts here. And I'm like, it's okay. The ghosts only bother people who are really scared of ghosts. Like, you're not the ghost. Like, you're not going to see a ghost if you're not scared or worried about ghosts. You're definitely going to see a ghost if all night you're like, I'm going to see a ghost, I'm going to see a ghost, I'm going to see a ghost.
Right.
So
the weirdest. Oh, sorry.
No, you go ahead. I'm interested in what you're about to say.
Yeah, yours is more valid.
You know, I could really spend a lot of time unpacking this, but one of the weirdest things that happened is I had during a couple of my sessions what I can only describe as like a vision of sorts, and it happened a few times to me, and each time it was like this really clear like image, but it wasn't a visual. I don't know how to describe it. It wasn't with my eyes, but I saw it. That sounds weird,
like a memory.
But
you interpreted the information.
Yeah, and that's, I think what it is I was picking up on something. But what's really weird is, I don't know how to put this because it sounds so crazy, but I basically saw events before they happened. Like, I had this weird vision and I couldn't really make sense of it, so I wrote it down in my journal and stuff and drew out some stuff. And then the next day, something on the news was like spot on with what I saw. I saw, I'll share one specific example because there's actually a few. But one specific example was I saw an old man surrounded by what I thought was snow. and he looked like distressed and distraught. And the next day, there was a headline for an earthquake that had happened in Afghanistan. And the picture they showed was an old man who was distraught, and he was surrounded by dust, like a cloud of dust. And I thought it was snow in the you know.
See,
vision,
I think that's really fascinating.
So it freaked me out. I was like, how? Because, you know, it. Yeah, I don't know. I don't have an explanation for it, but it implies a lot.
And this is another thing, maybe, Nate, because you also are a pretty loyal Mysterious Universe listener. They were talking about this recently as well. But like with this type of remote view, this type of vision, that like it's like there's a lot of different theories on how it's working, but a lot of it is actually about like nonlinear time,
right?
And that and
that freaks me out.
Linear time.
Nonlinear time specifically, or linear time, but like the complexity of linear time, and especially emotionally charged images.
Yes.
And so like you wouldn't have had that vision if you weren't going to see that image. But when you see that, like, so that they're actually connected, and that's why there's a lot of remote viewers, like the really good remote viewers, after they find the missing child, they go travel to the spot just to make sure that they're there, so that they're like weird,
so
like,
they can
reverberation of like the future and the past complete the connection. And so I think you were fully tapped in to like see that. It would make sense that it was a charged image. It wasn't like a little girl in a
raincoat. It was like devastating. It was a really emotional,
a highly emotionally charged
really hit, you know,
image would cause that linkage to happen, like in a timeline like that. And I think
I don't think it's what it. Remember Donnie Darko when he had the glowing thing come out of him, and he followed the path.
Donnie Darko is disclosure.
It was because imagine, and here's what I think with the Tic Tac U.A.P. and all U.A.Ps, they're doing crazy maneuvers. Nothing can accelerate or go from 80,000 feet in a few seconds to sea level. Yet you can't in our rate of time or our timeline. But if you start messing, I don't necessarily think they're time travelers, but if you warp space-time a little bit, and then here's the go ahead.
No, I'm vibing on what you're saying, man.
Here's the Donnie Darko point. Let me do that point.
Sure, I'll let you.
Yeah. So Donnie Darko, if you step outside of a human life, your life, and you see your birth to death, and because you're saying timeline, because you're imagining the time. So picture Donnie Darko walking through like the Family Circle cartoon of the dots everywhere, but that's your whole life. Guess what? That's happening there's no time. Your consciousness is the perception of that time at this moment. The moment we're talking is because your consciousness is just the recorder or just the experiencer at that point.
Needle.
However, on the record. You're the needle on the record is your consciousness. Your life's already played out. Every decision you think you've made, you haven't. Your consciousness is the observer.
We're just on a roller coaster.
You work. Yes. And if you want to read further, My Big Toe is. I don't like the book, but you might like it. But it's really a good scientific approach to looking at that, and it goes into like all the somewhat woo, but at a scientific NASA way to look at it.
Totally. So real quick, there was a theoretical physicist, Carlo Rovelli, who wrote a book called The Order of Time. And he talks about how time as we understand it isn't a thing. Time doesn't actually exist. It's just our perception of a fourth dimensional reality from a very, what do you call it? We have a very specific, like very limited view of the true nature of reality. And so there's a lot of science that backs that up. And it's
we're in the fishbowl. We're sitting in a fishbowl, right? Like, look at this weird circular shaped universe that we're in. It's
Plato's allegory of the cave. What we perceive as reality is like a fraction of what's true. Like we can't actually comprehend everything.
Correct.
Right.
I love it. I just read the book like Order of Time.
I've always thought that was a problem with us too, because time is just the measurement of
it's dry
events, right?
What was that, Tim?
I said if time is us, time is humans applying measurement to experience, and that's what we base all of our physics on, or a lot of it. And I
Yeah.
feel like these other, if there was some other evolution of an intelligent being, either on Earth or from somewhere else, and they just don't give a shit about time, like what would their
They like
technology
exist
look like?
outside of that
Yeah.
somehow.
Like
Yeah.
they just never chose to measure time, and they built up technologies to travel and things that didn't involve it. Like
Yeah,
is
like
it,
the Arrival
Yeah.
or something, like
right?
Oh
Like,
yeah.
if you take a piece of paper and you
Interstellar?
fold it in
No,
half,
don't fold
and
it
then
in
you can
half.
poke
Don't fold the
Don't
paper in half.
fucking-
paper.
Everybody folds, and there's always somebody named Smitty, and then I'm not into it.
Yes, here it comes. Oh my gosh, mind blown.
Um,
I don't need to see that scene again. It's such an overplayed trope.
they're astronauts
Yeah.
in space,
Yeah,
studying
It's-
gravity, and
I
Matthew
get it
McConaughey is like,
for
hold
like
on,
the audience,
hold on,
but
fold
yeah,
the
guys.
paper.
Let's fold.
It's like, yeah,
some
we've all
paper.
seen
they
Event
could have done
Horizon.
that differently for
Horizon.
sure.
Yeah, we've
The
all
Event
seen Event
Horizon.
Horizon. We know what happens.
Hey, you know what
yeah.
Event Horizon had? An astronaut named Smitty.
Mm.
It's a thing. So
Lawrence Fishburne was awesome in that movie.
Yes, he's awesome at everything.
Yeah,
Sam
I mean,
Neill
I'm not
also.
saying
He's
I
a
didn't like it,
Sam Neill
but
is
national-
great too.
Sam Neill was great. He was super creepy. Yeah.
that was
Maybe
his first big
that's
thing
why
after
they're
Jurassic Park, right?
demons? Wait,
That's
didn't
right.
that, because we can't look at them like Lou was saying in the book, and that's what Joe McMoneagle said too. Is
Yeah.
like he had to have some guys or senators would come up and say, you're doing the Lord's work, and then the next guy would be like, you're demonic, and then the same thing like with Lou, the actual like
Yeah.
colonels and stuff being like, don't look at those are just the devil tricking you or demons trying to trick you. Maybe
Yeah,
that's
so
from
weird.
Maybe
It's
that's
not
from,
cool.
maybe that's from Event Horizon, right?
Yeah.
Maybe
Oh,
that's
maybe.
maybe it's
Yeah,
that's
'cause-
why they're demons, because they went through the paper and now they're they came back from the hell universe or
man.
whatever.
My
Event
Event
did.
Horizon story was that was the first movie that I ever had like on DVD, and we realized we could freeze frame the hell scenes because there's like there's like these flashes of hell that were like one frame. And so that was really fun. That and Commando with Arnold Schwarzenegger. If you freeze frame any explosion, all the people suddenly turn into paper cutouts. And when the explosion happens, I was like, DVDs are the way of the future. Like, this is amazing.
Director's commentary was a game changer too.
I
have a lot of
it's so good.
I have
Eric,
a lot
tell
of
us more
nostalgia
about
for that
Event
era.
Horizon.
Me too.
Tell us more about Event Horizon, Eric.
I mean, we could talk about it if you want. I love the
Event
ship
Horizon-
designs, like the
It's so
practical,
good. That
the
movie was
practical
scary as
effects
hell.
in that movie are insane. It really holds up like crazy. It looks a lot better than
And like
a lot
the
of
orb
sci-fi
drive
movies today.
thing, it's quite
Yeah.
beautiful. It's a beautiful
Yeah.
science fiction movie.
I feel
And
like they were onto something too.
I
I
think
think they were
there's not
ripping
a lot
off
of
the
movies-
black hole. They were ripping off the black hole from Disney from the
That
late
Disney movie
1970s.
that with the terrible special effects.
I love the spaceship, and I love the mean robot.
Uh-huh.
And then he fuses with the robot at the end. Sorry, spoiler.
It's
But
been a minute since I've
you
seen
should-
that one.
I
It's like
think
it's like
it's a-
Tron era level stuff, right?
Yeah,
Like-
yes. But what you do, just wait until you can't sleep one night. It's like, I can't sleep.
yeah.
Put on the black hole. It goes.
That sounds like
goes-
fun. I might
yeah,
do that
it-
tonight. We'll see.
Yeah, it's a fun one.
All right,
on
we
Disney
should probably
Plus.
get back to the
I was
UAP.
gonna say, let's
Yeah,
bring
yeah,
it back to the congressional hearing and UAPs
Yeah.
and phenomena. Phenomena.
So the congressional hearing, I don't know, is as exciting as
Yeah, I mean,
There-
let's-
there
again,
was some
we
stuff.
watched it, so our
Um,
listeners don't have to. Like, so
right.
let's kind of summarize it a little bit more. It was like nothing crazy.
It was very
got
dry.
revealed, but I do think it's one more brick in the wall.
I
of
think it's
slow
an important
disclosure.
brick.
Yeah,
this-
super important.
because like if you think about it, like that first hearing could be viewed as an anomaly. If it was the only one, then people could just move on. But this is the second one, and there's more information that's backing up that first one. And if
Yeah.
we have another hearing that's just like this with more witnesses, and again, they're all credible across the board, like at a certain point, people are going to have to start paying attention and take the stuff seriously. Like,
And,
wait a
and I will
second.
say there is
By the time we
power
get to
in
the
unity
sixth hearing,
in a
you know, like-
polarized and divided government.
yeah,
That was a congressional panel of exact opposites, and
Yeah.
they were all pissed at the same thing.
right.
Do not underestimate the power of like togetherness and being pissed off at something,
Yeah.
because they were like
Absolutely.
clapping at the end, with that last guy was like late to the hearing. and
Yes.
people, he
that was
like,
awesome.
this is like obscene that we do not have access to do our basic
Yes.
legislative job of overseeing the budget of this stuff. And like it was like there you can feel the collective anger. and I think that's a real powerful tool, especially in a polarized like area.
We need
like,
this. I think our country needs this right now.
Even people that hate each other is like, do you want to talk about how much we hate that thing? You know, like it's like having like Joffrey or something. It's like we all hate the motherfucker. Like you could it doesn't matter who you're with. You're like, we disagree on everything, but fuck Joffrey. You know what I mean?
Yeah, what a great actor. If you hate the bad guy.
What a poor actor. You know, I think about that guy sometimes.
Amazing actor.
Like he can never be in anything else.
No.
And I remember when maybe it was the last season, maybe or the season before the last season. But it's before. No, it wasn't last season because he hadn't died yet. But
when he died,
I was living in New York City, and Joffrey's face was just on the back of all the buses, like city buses, and it's just so you'd be like looking out the window, and then just like 12-foot tall Joffrey face just like goes by. It's like that poor son of a bitch will never have another job. I hope they are paying him well.
Right.
No,
but great actor. But regardless, if big government is the Joffrey, we now like deep state, like UFO cover up. Like we now have like a unified congressional like body committee investigating it, and I mean it will probably get kneecapped or something. Like Tim was saying,
God, I hope not.
Like Musk will be like not a good expenditure of money.
No, I think Musk might provide disclosure because he's going to kneecap the shadow programs.
Or all the space
Immaculate Constellation. If he's like, how much money's going there? Nope.
I want it. But yeah.
Get rid of it.
Yeah. We'll see what happens. I'm a little concerned, to be honest.
Yeah, as you should be.
Yeah, because he seems like just a troll, you know.
I mean, there are a lot of people in power right now, or coming into power, are trolls. And
absolutely. And
there is at least within the instability of that, maybe like it could shake up disclosure. Because at the end of the day,
maybe it'll end up being a good thing in the long run. In a weird way.
At the end of the day, we want disclosure.
From the ashes shall come the truth.
No, it's easy to bury stuff in chaos.
It's true.
Yeah,
chaos.
True
but that's
too.
what I mean. Like everything else in our life, everything's just getting further on the seesaw. So there's going to be larger swings, right?
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
Yeah.
Also, one teacher or professor that said, and this is 20 years old. I'll find the clip for you, Chris, if it's interesting. But he was like, in one time the mushrooms told me, like everything's gonna get weirder and weirder and weirder and weirder until you don't even know what's real. And I'm like, why is this happening? And the answer was, this is what happens to a society before they go to the stars. And that was kind of his Carl segment, which was kind of cool. If you've seen it, Chris,
that's amazing.
I have definitely seen it. That was it was
what was it?
We'll find it and send it.
Link it to me, man. I gotta check that out.
He's like a Ram Dass, Timothy Leary guy, but he was
I was gonna say it's not Timothy Leary, it's not Ram Dass, it is Terrence McKenna.
I will say the closest thing I've ever had to a spiritual experience was thanks to mushrooms. So there's really something to it, you know. There's something there. Yeah.
I think everyone will start macro dosing, you know.
Macro dosing.
No.
like so.
Start out small, work your way up.
Microdosing is the trend, right? So I'm gonna come up with macro dose gummies for people and sell them on Instagram.
I had this friend in New York that was like getting pretty deep into microdosing while we would like go do stuff, and he would go so fucking dark in places. I was like, dude, if you're microdosing, you have to fucking stop drinking. You can't.
You really got to detox.
I would like I'd be in a good
mindset
events with him, and his like eyes were like, I was like, you're gonna murder someone. Like you have to pick a poison.
Pick a lane, dude.
Yeah,
you're gonna tear your brain in half doing that. Don't do that.
Nothing beats the blues like a depressant.
That's why everybody goes to alcohol, right?
Yeah, exactly. So there's a few things we got to mention real quick.
Yes.
I think the main thing is the U.A.P. Disclosure Act, which they brought up, which I'm glad they did, because that was another huge thing that happened last year. Got shot down at the last second by Mike Turner of Ohio, which is where Wright-Patterson Air
Mhm.
Base happens to be. And if you look at his funding, like it's all lobbyists from the military industrial complex. So that's pretty fishy in its own right. There's just a lot going on. Like if you're reading between the lines here, there's a lot more here, you know.
Mhm.
I hope
I
that
mean,
made
definitely.
sense. I hope that made sense.
No, it did.
You're getting to the whole point of it all, right?
There's
Like,
some meat behind
yeah.
this, you know. There's so much smoke. There has to be a fire at this point. I think we're
Mhm.
kind of past that point of like, is this real or not? Like, shit's real, okay. We just got to figure out the details, you know.
There's a new thing I saw today, of course, because I was following up on the congressional hearing,
Right.
and seeing like so I went into the comment section, right, in various places, and there's apparently a group of people that is like, I want to discuss a non-alien discussion. And so there's people that are saying, I 100% do not believe in aliens. This is not aliens. This is humans from the future. And, and they're like, it is way more plausible. And
It's
because of the
likely as anything
timeline
else,
thing.
I think. Yeah. I mean, it's
Yeah.
definitely one of the possibilities, right?
So I think going back to consciousness, because of all the growth I've made in the past 4 or 5 years,
Yeah.
being consciousness centered has gotten me the most results for like just coming to terms with stuff.
Oh, definitely.
And there's
It's huge.
I think not just like a non-brain part of it, which is part of the astral projection, remote viewing, out of body experiences, near death experiences.
Right.
The exception being lucid dreaming, which maybe Nace could talk. That's somewhere in the middle. I think somehow these UAPs are related to that in a
Yeah.
way that the collective consciousness, the more we talk about it, the more we pay attention to it, the more we're seeing it. And I'm
Right.
not just saying with cell phones and stuff. And I know people are like, everybody has a cell phone. Why don't we have more videos? One, we don't believe it because you show 500 UAP videos and maybe you believe one of them and the rest could be
Right.
explained away or something.
Totally.
And two, if we're talking about getting these technologies from reverse engineering, do you think that was not sort of put in that to just they could exist on a spectrum that a cell phone camera, as advanced as they're getting, are still, it's a fucking camera on
Well,
a
and
cell phone, maybe it
that
won't
brings
pick
me
it up?
around to. I don't want to interrupt you, Jim, because you're on a good
That
tangent.
was my
Definitely.
tangent.
Yeah, that's what I thought. You seemed like you were coming to an end, but like one thing that I was drawn to at the hearing today, the UAP hearing that we watched today, was how all four witnesses who want to talk about this, some of them are a little bit like in a corner by their NDAs and stuff they're not allowed to talk about legally,
It's
and they're
classified.
trying to talk around it because they all want disclosure, right? The one thing that all of them did, whether intentional or not, was refuse to sign up for a conventional idea of aliens. Driving spaceships.
Well,
every single one of them. Now they all had slightly different iterations, but none of them would be, because like at one point the congressional members who are asking questions were like, I need some like brass tacks answers, like, are these aliens flying ships? And none of them will be like, in which I think says something.
Lou said yes. He goes, yes. Are these non-human things?
Non-human
Yes.
intelligence.
And then
Yes.
she said, "Are these do we?" No, she said aliens. And he said yes. She said, "Are these?" Which by the way, Chris, I don't know that they're little green men, but or
No, of
they
course
are,
not.
but they might not be from another planet. But she said, Macy or whatever said, "Hey, does the government have downed UFOs?" He goes, "Yes." And she goes, are these alien?" And he goes, "Yes." But alien just means not human, right?
Well, exactly, but with, I mean, everyone else, I'll go to them because they had kind of their own dance. Well, when Lou danced a little bit was when I forget which Congress member was asking him, but was just like trying to say, could these UAPs be living? And he was like, well, like that no one wanted to really lock down on a definition. And I thought that was telling because I mean, I think, and you guys read his book, I think there's a lot of like transdimensional kind of like theory going on.
That's a possibility.
And so I think he was trying to be like, it is non-human intelligence, but like you're gonna have to, but I can't talk about it, but you're gonna have to really expand your mind on what you think that might be, because if you're picturing a Star Trek humanoid alien like flying a spaceship,
right,
I can't sign on to that, but like some crazy shit is happening. And one of my favorites was non-biological intelligence.
Yeah. Yeah.
That the NASA person was kind of excited to talk
Which is
about. And they're like, what is
AI? It's
non-biological?
alien AI, right? Non-human.
Yeah, which is one of I think that's
life.
one of the more likely possibilities because I mean that's what we would do eventually if we had the technology is send out a bunch of AI probes to scan other planets and before we send humans,
and dimensional shifts. Like what if, like, let's say there are a parallel universe, what if, like in a Slader's theory, some in the onion skin are closer than others, and one we hit AI like AI singularity 10 years ago, and that one, and the AI singularity is like, I'm going to explore these other
possibilities,
blimps that were showing up in the 1890s, right? Like you had the blimps and the UFOs.
Right.
Everything just seems right ahead of us, but not quite too far ahead.
All right, here's
Jacques Vallée talks about that a lot too, about how like our consciousness may actually affect what we interpret, like how we're seeing these things. So that could
100%.
be, we see like back in what was it, the late 1800s, they saw like those phantom airships and they were very steampunk and stuff, but that's maybe like the cultural overlay that they're bringing
like this is how they're explaining the Mayflower approaching like indigenous tribes, right? Like what do you see out there,
they saw
Apocalypto
clouds
style
or whatever.
Exactly. Like I saw a serpent in the sea, I saw a god mountain.
With remote viewing, it's called analytic overlay, right?
Yes,
you're applying things that you know on top of things that you don't understand. I'll say here's a
story. Go ahead.
Our brains like to have certainty, so we like
and pattern
slot in things. Yeah.
So a theory that not a lot of people talk about, but I've seen before, is they talk about non-human biologics and this biologics and biologics.
Yes.
And you don't hear bodies as much, but sometimes you hear bodies. But the other thing is that if we're thinking of bipedal aliens walking around, but what if like whatever this intelligent being is takes some cells out of its brain and then puts armor around it? You know what I mean? And that's the only way I can describe it is, but the inside of these ships is the organic part, and they're like, well, I'm going to put my helmet on, and the helmet is the metal sphere, and it's going and traveling. But
so the UFOs themselves are alive,
but it's a piece of
which
body.
is why they were kind of having that weird conversation about that today.
And they were saying,
asking, what if the UAPs are biological?
Like, what if like they take a panel off and there's a freaking brain inside?
Right,
it's like
that's what I'm saying.
or something.
That's
like a
perfect.
petri dish.
I want the Krang brain. That's great.
Yes. I'm all for it.
It is Krang.
Astonishing
the perfect
Legends
example
talked about that, right? Like the little baby UFO that wrecked in Japan or Korea. I think it was Japan, and the kids were playing with it because it was really small, and they dumped water in it, and sparks came out, and they shook it, and some oozed out later, and then it didn't work anymore, and then like
I haven't heard this.
Yeah, what story is that from?
I'll find it. I listened to it on Astonishing Legends, which is an awesome.
Sphere would follow them around, right?
Was it? No, that was the Bet Sphere you're thinking of, which is a really good story.
Bet Sphere is a weird one. Yeah, definitely.
That I like it, and I like how the government was X-rayed it and then gave them back like a dud sphere.
Yes,
that's great.
Oh man, so messed up.
So another person that we haven't talked about much is Chris Bledsoe.
Yes.
He is not a scientist. He is not a professional. He's an experiencer, but he had experiences valid enough that NASA brought him to some launches. And he's saying he's been off planet, but not through human intelligences. And he's Christian. Whoa. He goes to church every Sunday.
Okay.
And his experience, his initial one, like he's had a pretty traumatic life. And he has a book called UFO of God.
I've heard of that. Yeah.
He said it's the same stuff that they talked about experiencing in the Bible, the burning bush, all this stuff.
The thing coming down from the sky, and
it's a specific book. Ezekiel. Yeah,
it's Ezekiel. Well, Ezekiel's the one where all the weird shit.
Eyes.
Right. And the angel, and he's saying that this is what
biblically
that is.
Accurate angel.
Yeah, they're still around. So he saw a couple of these orbs like communicating with each other, and they took them away, And then he was gone for like 20 minutes. When we came back, he found that the giant fire they had started was completely coals. His son was experiencing paralysis laying in the bushes. And then after that, he started seeing UAPs. And if you look him up, he's got all sorts of pictures and evidence. And then he said he's been taken off planet by the whatever conscious beings these are. And
physically?
Physically.
Like his physical body was
gone. He was gone. He was gone.
Yeah.
And then it gets weird because he said a gold pen showed up of these like triangles, and in it said like these are for people who have been off planet. And like
sorry, what?
He got a souvenir.
Gold pen?
Yeah, like
Stole
he got
a merit badge.
material.
He's part of a secret.
I want
Well,
one.
stole his material.
Sign me up, man.
So he said that he met their what he called the lady in white, and if you look up the lady in white, there's so many cross-cultural references to her. As far back, some people even say Virgin Mary is like the Christian version of that.
Wow.
But he said when he was taken to her, and that she was this glowing figure, which sounds kind of like, and spoiler alert, I just talked to Neatcast in a serious episode last night about it, like, and we talked about this, that it sounds like one of the Nordics or whatever. But it also, he said, she wants me for whatever reason to talk about this. She wants me to tell everybody. She said not to be afraid, a lot like the biblically accurate angels, and to tell everybody that they're good. These are good things. And then he actually, one of the UAPs over his house, he said dripped things, and which is what Nate was just saying. And he recovered a piece of it, and you know who he gave it to? Tom DeLonge. Because Tom DeLonge was like, I'll take that off your hands for you. It's like, sure, here you go.
That's so wild.
Right. And so of the group, but if you look it up, there's pictures of him with government agencies, NASA people, FBI. He was taken to NASA, showing all these things, and he has that little pin, and Tom DeLonge is, and it's like, why? He hadn't even written a book yet, and these people were involved in his life. Like pretty in depth.
You can call orbs to him,
right? And that's what he said. He was like, one of the officials that like go unnamed came up to him and was like, "We don't understand why they like some people, but they like you, so we want to be close to you."
Read the book. It's so really
interesting.
Crazy. It's a cool book.
That.
UFO.
Yeah. Okay.
Oh yeah, I gave Nate my copy of it.
I can finished it. It's pretty awesome.
I want to keep moving, but I also kind of want to start wrapping up. I think this has been awesome, but I just thought maybe we could pull it back to the hearing and like maybe have some final thoughts. Or Tim, what you're
shut up about. Chris, shut up. Eric, quick.
Yes. What?
Tridactyls and ant people. Could they be in charge of the UAPs?
So I'm curious to see where that story goes. It's still developing to my knowledge, but I'm not following it super closely. There's a lot of weirdness with the way
we leave that to Tim.
Yeah, I mean, I'm open to it. If something does come out, if there's like a peer-reviewed paper or something, I'll read it. But like it's just so weird the way that story's come out, and like the way it's been presented and stuff.
Messy.
And messy is an understatement. So, I feel like it hurts disclosure more than anything at this point until we have some hard verifiable evidence down there. But
we need Tim to stay on it, because everyone else.
I'm glad that Tim's on top of it, because I will absolutely read whatever he shares. Yeah,
I will share.
And I'm not gonna make fun of him too much for it. But
Tim is referring.
They were
to
stored
the
in
aliens.
somebody's garage for like 10 years.
No, but all right. So give me my 3-minute conspiracy theorist to get.
We need to keep this alive, because everyone else has forgotten about cake aliens.
Yeah,
somebody made a fucking cake out of these goddamn bodies.
It's so good. It was definitely
ruined
CIA
everything.
who made that cake.
No, so I'll say
that was a good meme.
That and ant people is a ridiculous thing to call them, but they're tiny little humans that cross-cultural, but closest to us is the Native Americans. Hundreds of years ago, have all this story and these lore and this culture surrounding them. Like you respect nature and you don't fuck with the ant people, because they will destroy you. They have the ability to make you just disappear. But also in the same cultures, there's cross-sectional. I say cross-sectional. That doesn't make sense. But in that same the same
Intersectional.
culturals, oh my god, I can't talk. At one point there is some catastrophic event that could have wiped out whatever culture was there at the time, and the people that were there were taken underground by the ant people and protected, and then whatever this event was ended and they came back out, and that was, I can't say documented, but it was talked about, and they have real primitive
Like through oral
drawings of it.
traditions and stuff.
But you'll never find a peer-reviewed paper because that was just handed down of like, oh, this is what happened to our people. This is why your grandfather survived. This is why your great-grandfather survived.
That's
And
awesome.
it was an ant people thing. And those bodies that they have, if this is my hill to die on, I don't feel confident about it. But they CC'd them, they DNA check them, and all that. The DNA is 30% unknown, which is an insane amount of unknown.
Yeah, that's pretty
The
wild.
CT did not debunk these bodies, the Tridactyls, the bigger ones or the small ones. It just sucks that the person that presented them had previously presented fake bodies. So he is the worst person to have brought them, but he finally got a hold of some good ones.
Right? Yeah.
And then there's also videos of grave robbers essentially finding some of the alien bodies and manipulating them, and they move weird.
Yeah.
And, one of the Tridactyls that recently came forward has hair.
Tridactyls are the big ones.
The big
right?
ones. It has hair.
Whoa.
It has head hair.
That's
which
interesting.
is a
That's
little
kind of
fucked up.
creepy. Yeah.
So I'm not saying I'm 100% in, but
I'm curious to see if something comes of it. Honestly,
they have
like
yet to debunk those. So
yeah.
I do like how it links folk traditions to the UAP story, which I think
Right.
is important because I do think that it's a thread I don't want to lose, which is the high strangeness. Like
Totally.
this stuff is connected. Like Bigfoot is connected to UAP, which is connected to the Fae, which is connected to, like, all of this is kind of connected to like the perception of consciousness, I think,
Well, it
and
could
high
be.
strangeness, right?
Yeah.
And that's what I think there's a 2-part volume of books called Ecology of Souls, which I recommend.
so good.
Yeah, and it's really good because it makes a pretty solid link between, like, say, alien abduction, UAP sightings, and like traditional cultural references like Fae, the ant people, which I like indigenous cultures, and it would make sense for me that they are connected because of their difficulty to photograph, like their difficulty to exist in a material way, but also existing in a very real, like, experiential way that I think that's not like a thread I want to lose as this stuff becomes more material. And as we have more congressional hearings, hopefully, as we have more like disclosure, hopefully. But again, I like to bring it back to the hearing, and I saw that in each of the people and the witnesses, their own, like, this is real. It's not 100% what you think it is, but it's real. And I don't think any of them are wrong, whether it's non-biological intelligence, whether it's
transdimensional
UAP,
AI
transdimensional
drones.
shifting. I mean, it's I think it's probably all of the above. For me in general, and this is, again, I kind of do want to start wrapping it up with our kind of like final thoughts. To me, like, with all of this stuff, and maybe why I love doing the podcast, is also like I'm a yes and kind of guy when it comes to this stuff. Like I like to think very expansively about these topics because I do think it's just like beyond my like dumb monkey brain. And I do think it's real. Like I believe not everything. In fact, I'm very discerning. I'm very skeptical about a lot of stuff. But
you have to be, but it's important. It's important to be open-minded at the same time,
it's
because
important to be able to compartmentalize your skepticism and your imagination. You need to have both simultaneously and be able to exist hypocritically, and that will allow you to have like kind of more insight into breaking out of consensus reality, because all this stuff cannot exist with our current consensus reality, and hopefully we will kind of evolve that kind of like collective agreement of what is real.
Well, it's always changing as technology and our knowledge of the universe changes. Germ theory, like think about like life before that, everything we know about the cosmos that we didn't know 100 years ago. Like there's so many X-rays, man. Like there's so many things. Like there's so much to our world that we can't experience with our own senses, firsthand.
Absolutely.
So like we have to be open to invisible shit.
Yeah, but
like,
again, there is a discernment that should happen, but
Sure.
there should also be
Yeah.
like an ability to
it's so arrogant
temporarily
to think
compartmentalize a very specific materialism.
It's so arrogant to think that we have it all figured out at this point.
Yeah.
I think what's becoming apparent to our society is that we barely understand 1% of
we
reality.
don't know. Yeah,
like we don't know
let alone
shit.
Our oceans.
We're high on our own stuff, man. Like
yeah.
Yeah, exactly. The oceans is a good example, and that's something they brought up with the hearing. There's way more UAP sightings underwater than above it.
Yeah, which is why. Oh, one thing we hadn't talked about, and again, we do want to go with conclusions. I've already done mine, I think, but like they just kind of casually drop the whole like USO or is that underwater
Sting the abyss moment from the camera.
Well, he said that the orb that was traveling underwater at the speed of the like a torpedo emerged from the water and joined another orb.
No, two different stories.
No, sorry.
Yeah, because it was in the 80s, it was tracking super fast and then slowed down and followed it for a while.
Yeah, not that one. The other one, where I like the idea there was a USO that came out of the water, an unidentified submerged object, right? Submersible.
Well, that's why they call them both UAPs now, the anomalous phenomenon.
Yeah, okay. Anomalous phenomena. The UAP came out of the water and then another UAP and they joined. And that was just casually dropped by a rear admiral.
Yeah.
Yeah, who's the doctor.
Yeah.
Which is let me do my closing thing because it's a 30-second
story. Tim and Nate, and then we'll let Eric close it out, and then we'll kind of talk a little bit more. But
I think I've said this one before, and it's my other pitch into the Monroe Institute, which I always like to do. But I was there one time, and I was there the week after all the UFO people had been there, like just to hang out, like they had been invited.
You know what's fucked up is that was probably Elizondo and the.
Oh, Greer, I'm sure, but yeah, which I'm not a huge
I don't
fan
like
of.
Greer.
Yeah,
but anyway,
Greer gives me
Yeah, I have the weird like greasy vibes off that one, but anyway,
he's like a televangelist, like he's so attached to his.
Yeah, this kind of rubs you wrong.
Yeah.
And there's always somebody is like doing those E5 things or whatever. I don't like the meditation thing.
It's a Scientology of the UFO.
Yes. Anyway, not to avoid that, but everybody was talking about the UFO guys and the different UFOs that people have seen there. That's up in the mountains, right? like, and it's dark.
It is in rural Virginia.
But here's the story that I like. There's like one time they're set out there or whatever, and they see this flunky, like a traditional looking UFO, but it looks like it has a stovepipe, like a cabin just coming out of it. And it would just like put along and then puff a cloud around it and just hold still, and you wouldn't see it. And then you'd see it move over here. And then it looks like they said it looked like a flying saucer. I can't even. And this is like somebody retelling the story from the week before, right?
Yeah.
But it's here. It was at the place. But anyway, so it's a flying saucer with a clunky looking pipe coming out of it that emitted a cloud around it. And then after a while, you could see it like kind of going around. And after a while, two F-18s, which are not abnormal here, fly by. They don't even approach it, but they like fly by in a curve, and one of them launches a pod off of it. And then from the pod, it's like a little drone that just starts following that UFO as it goes away, and the two fighter jets fly off.
What?
That's some
wild,
Looney Tunes level shit.
I feel it's
I
so
would love
weird.
To see that.
Bang, bang, and then
it's like I don't know that the UFO was clunky, but they said the pipe looked corny coming out of it, and it would puff up a cloud around it, and then it would move. Or it didn't make it clunky. I'm adding how I was picturing it, but it would just move off, and then it would form a cloud around it again. And after a while, two fighter planes like came in a pair and dropped, like they said, called it a drone or something, just off of one of them, and that shot off kind of slowly following the thing, and then the two jets like just flew off and didn't come back. Now, God knows there are enough weird people there, but it was just such a bizarre UFO story.
Yeah.
I like the weirder they are, the more believable they are to me. And it wasn't like, and a beam of light shot down and I felt my consciousness rise into the clouds before I saw the. No, it was like, I don't know. It was this weird thing. It looked like a corny pipe.
That's some
Cloud came in.
Steamboat Willie
Jets.
shit, like coming with the.
Smelled like pancakes. Like,
Yeah,
it's like
So
exactly.
I sometimes wonder if the UAP phenomenon is really just a trickster god that's messing with us all.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah,
some of these stories are so out there that it's
But they
like,
don't-
is any of this real? Yeah.
all right, so Nate and Tim, why don't you give
my
give
final.
little,
That was it.
summary
That's
of-
all I got. That's my
Oh,
last
that's
thing.
good. Tim, what are your
Oh,
final
what's
thoughts on
what's
this
that
topic?
noise?
No, we want because I want Eric to have a 2 cents.
Let's
to
let
put in.
Eric go, and then we can make him cringe at our jokes.
I can
did
try.
you guys wait? Did either of you bring jokes?
Yes.
All right, yeah. So Eric goes first, and then I don't need a closing statement.
Okay.
I brought up my ant people, so that's fine.
Okay.
Well, I didn't necessarily prepare a closing statement, but
No, you know, just your final
Eric,
thoughts.
this is a
totally.
5-minute minimum.
Yeah.
Just likes to edit things so everyone
You need
sounds a
to
little
sum up.
smart.
No, it's just anything you want to say. Also,
right.
can we use this opportunity? Where can people find you?
Yeah, I was going to get to that.
Okay,
Yeah,
your
but,
website, your
let's do that now.
podcast,
Too.
what do you
Like,
wanna-
where can we find you? How can people talk to you?
And then just
Yeah,
anything
totally.
about UAPs you want to just get off your chest.
Sure. Well, you can find me all over social media at Erik Slader. That's Eric with the K, Slater with the D as in Delta. Check out my books on Audible and Amazon, $22.99 and Tempest Machina. And check out my podcast, the Super Switch Club, Epic Fails of History, and Nerdiogram, an Enneagram podcast.
Any final thoughts on today's hearing or the concept of UAP? What are you looking forward to next? Like with this subject?
I'm just curious to see where this all goes. Like I want to believe in democracy. I feel like there's a lot of
low bar.
Like there seems to be something to this, and I hope that it actually gets somewhere this time, because there is clearly a history of obfuscation with this topic. And it feels like this is a little different than what's happened in the past. It feels like there is some momentum going on. One of the things that I've really been paying attention to is there seems to be a correlation between nuclear activity and UAP. And I'd like to know what that connection is, And I feel like
was it the nuclear reactor in New Jersey outside of New York just came back on?
Yeah. Well, even Arrow has acknowledged that there's a connection. Like way back when they were first starting, they put out a UAP hotspot map, and guess where all the things were? You got Hiroshima, Chernobyl, the Southwest, where they've done tons of nuclear tests. So like there is clearly a pattern there, and I'd like to know what it is. I don't have the answers, but I'm open to the possibilities.
Yeah, 3 Mile Island. Sorry, I don't know why my
3 Mile Island.
They just brought it back online to power AI.
Oh, that's interesting.
I think Microsoft bought it out because there's 2 nuclear reactors. One is what almost destroyed the world. The other one's fully functional, but they shut it down.
I got thrown a data center 2 cents on nuclear stuff. So in the data center industry, the country's out of power anyway. Yeah. And so there are these.
Nate is an actual proper expert on this.
No, I'm not. But at the last several
that's your job,
shows,
though, Nate.
It is. I make power distribution for AI stuff. But anyway, because everybody's out of power and data centers are getting large now. Like I think you're going up to 300 megawatts and stuff. And then, this technology's been out for a while, and they're building them now. And I think Google was just approved for 3 of them, and what they are small mini nukes, and they're 50 megawatts, self-contained. They last 20 years, and it's a constant output of power. They don't have a meltdown, none of that.
Nice.
And at the end of 20 years, you change the fuel out. You only need a 60-foot keep away, right? At 60 feet. And then after X number of years, it's now becomes fuel for a standard one, like near us is Lake Anna. right? Or
Wow.
Suffolk has another one. Then they take it over to wherever and can use it as normal fuel rods. But it's not like going to melt down. There's no necessary precautions. It's a little baby nuke, and the original, I believe they were originally designed for like small towns in Alaska or somewhere where you can't run transmission lines, like a long time ago. And unfortunately, think about where the carbon footprint would be if we had.
I know if we embrace that technology,
it would be so much better. We might have fusion. Who knows? Instead of just burning coal in the air. But
I
anyway,
have a lot of hope for fusion. We'll see what happens with that.
I do. I think it's exciting, right? But that would be the next industrial revolution, like unlimited power. Oh my gosh,
singularity.
That would change society.
Yeah, it would be awesome. I think it's coming, right? But anyway,
I think it is too. I hope it happens in our lifetime.
It'd be nice. Well, yeah. I think it's either going to be, but I like Mad Max or Star Trek as the path.
One of those two. We're at the convergence. Yeah,
that's what I'm saying.
I absolutely agree.
Down the seesaw, it's going to be more extreme.
It's either going to be AI is either going to solve
or Mad Max.
Yeah, it's going to solve post-scarcity society or post-scarcity society because there are no people, right? Like it's right there. But anyway,
post-scarcity anarchy.
So if you have all these mini nukes, we're talking about UAPs and nuclear, not to recharge the whole freaking podcast, but the whole idea is if you're thinking we're about to add in the United States a lot of nuclear facilities. And I mean, if you think about, like right now, there are 5,200 existing data centers. The current demand, right now, the demand is for an additional 15,000. And that demand is increasing every year. There's not enough.
Say that again. There are currently,
about 52 to 5,300 existing data centers in the United States. The U.S. demand for data center, or what you can think about it in megawatts or whatever, but you need 15,000 in the next 10 years additional data centers to keep up with the current growth.
I think about most things in megawatts, Nate.
It's crazy.
Nuclear power is the obvious choice.
It is. It's
so
excited
about this.
It's 6 years, by the way. 6 years.
I feel it.
6 years for those mini reactors. This is all I think about and do, right?
That's awesome.
But anyway, so we're talking about UAPs being attracted to nuclear stuff. There's about to be a whole lot of nuclear facilities. And even though we're a little podcast, like we said, only 1,200 bots are listening to us right now. But those bots ought to get excited because I think it's awesome. Because one, it's clean, it's carbon neutral, kind of, might wouldn't stand too close to those, but it's like there's going to be more power in the United States, and with that, maybe there are more UAPs, especially if they're circling around data centers. God forbid you shut down Candy Crush or whatever else is going on. That might get some attention. Sorry, that was my final thing, not the UFO story. There you go.
All right, so Tim's final thing, which I believe is leaving early so that we can go drink a drink at a bar.
Tim left a long time ago.
Oh, I apologize, Eric, to what's gonna happen.
Hey, you travelers, I see you have an extra patron today. And just to explain, I run a barkeep from the quasi-Middle Ages, and I serve alcoholic ranch drinks. But you can only pay for them with jokes. And I was wondering if you had any about aliens or ant people.
And if you don't have any, Eric, it's okay. Nate can usually pay for both of us.
Yeah, I'll pass for now.
Most of the time, nobody earns any drinks.
I have 3 jokes, so... One of us might get
one for each of us.
One of us
might get a drink.
I will currently close ChatGPT as I was currently asking for UAP.
You open it back up, please.
Ready? You're ready. Here
one.
we go.
Chris
I'm
needs
thirsty
one.
for your gross ranch thing. How are aliens preparing to invade the Earth?
I don't know.
Well, they got a planet.
No drink on that one. Please try again.
The next one. All right, it's a long trip between planets, right? Like it could take a lifetime or generations. So, what are the aliens going to read on their way over? Books.
What?
Comic books.
What? Say it
Comic
again?
books. They read comic books.
Comet books. That's fucking terrible.
Boy's about to leave the bar thirsty.
What to? What? This is a good one. All right. What?
You're
What-
breaking
Better
up.
be good.
Yep. All right, hold up. What is an alcoholic alien's favorite key?
What? An
Mhm.
alcoholic alien?
What
favorite?
is an alcoholic alien's favorite key?
Ursa Major.
The space bar.
Oh God, that's rough, dude. I'm gonna throw ourselves out.
So bad.
Okay.
Oh my god, so
It was pretty good though.
You
yeah,
have 2 minutes to keep warm in the bar and then leave thirsty.
That's all I got.